The meeting of the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority Board of Directors is now called to order at 6:30 p.m. Clerk, please call the roll.
Director Kenneth.
Here.
Director Matthews, not present. Director Chapman, not present. Director Sutherland. Here. Director Alexander.
Here.
Director Dominguez. Here. Director Gill.
Here.
Thank you. The next item is new staff introductions. Lucas Shellhammer will introduce Lillian Emerald, the new GIS technician.
Good evening, Directors. Lucas Shellhammer, Planning, Design, and Construction Manager. I'd like to introduce Lillian Emerald, who's here this evening. Lillian, no. She's on her way down. Stall, and
Talk about
so
her.
Lillian's actually been with us since last March, and working on the Badger corridor modeling with our Natural Resources Department. Brought a lot of expertise to OSA on that front, and she'll share more about that at the next board meeting. So she's been with us for a while, and she's done such a wonderful job assisting our GIS program that we've extended her tenure at OSA for another year. So we'd like to introduce her as a full staff member here this evening. Lillian, would you like to say a few words?
Hello, good evening. I'm Lillian. It's great to be here tonight. A little bit about me. I majored in environmental science and geography. And yeah, I'm super happy to be here to be supporting the GIS program. And yeah, I look forward to sharing a little bit about the work that I've been doing over the past couple months at next month's board meeting. Thank you.
Well, welcome, and we look forward to hearing about your work. At this time, any members of the public will have an opportunity to address the board on any item not on the agenda. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any commenters?
If there are any participants joining us via Zoom who would like to comment on any item not on the agenda, you may raise your hand. There are none.
Okay, thank you. Now on to the approval of the October 23rd, 2025 board meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Thank you. Are there any public comments?
If there are any participants joining us via Zoom who would like to comment on the minutes, please raise your hand. There are none.
Okay, so we have a motion by Director Kennett, a second by Director Gill for the approval of the October 23rd meeting minutes. Can we please call the vote?
Director Kenneth.
Yes.
Director Sutherland. Yes. Director Alexander.
Yes.
Director Dominguez.
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the consent calendar. Do any of the board members want to pull any items from the consent calendar?
I just move to approve this consent calendar, please.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Are there any public comments?
If there are any of the members joining us via Zoom who would like to comment on this item, please raise your hand. There are none.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have a motion to approve the consent items 1 through 6. Excluding 6?
No, including 6.
Oh. Okay, it says something different on the screen. Moved by Director Gill, second by Director Kennett. Clerk, please call the vote.
Director Kenneth.
Yes.
Director Sutherland.
Yes.
Director Alexander.
Yes.
Director Dominguez.
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes.
It passes unanimously. Okay, now we'll move on to new business. Members of the public will have the opportunity to comment on any matter on the agenda following the presentation by staff. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Item number 1, presentation and approval of Resolution 25-71, recognizing November as Sikh Awareness and Appreciation Month. This will be Director Calvin Gill.
Yes. Good evening, fellow directors, staff, community members in person or joining on the Zoom. Let me start by saying thank you and most welcome to our Sikh community leaders for coming and taking the time and join this very important Sikh Awareness Month meeting today. As you all might know that California state declared November is a Sikh Awareness and Appreciation Month, and it is my honor today. I'm just giving the presentation and talk about the Sikhism. So my whole presentation today will be focused on the question we are seeing on the screen. Who are the Sikhs? I'll try to give you as much as information, then I'm sure at the end of the presentation, all of you have the answer of this question. So I'll try my best. Next slide, please. Can you guess? So what we want to guess actually? Sikhi is, here is the guess, largest organized religion in the world. Yeah, please wait to guess because I'm going to give you a realistic data about the six very important religions on the globe. The first one is a Christianity, that is a 2.2 billion. Islam, 1.6 billion. Hinduism, 1 billion. Buddhism, 488 millions. Sikhism is 25 millions. Judaism is 14 millions. So we don't need any kind of guess at this point because we have the real data that Sikhi is the 5th largest religions in the world. If you look at on the right side, there are the symbol of each religions, and bottom, if you look at on the bottom middle, that is the symbol of Sikhism, is known as Khanda. Next slide, please. So history, you can see clearly in that picture, the Sikh is an immigrant from the Punjab region of South Asia and spread all over the world. So currently the Sikh is almost living every country. So that is the actually the origin is from Punjab. Is before that is not actually that is in Pakistan now, wherever the Sikh is born. But on that time, so India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh was the one country. Next slide, please. So Sikh in America. So when the Sikh came to America and why they came, that is the question we try to show in this picture. The first Sikhs came to United States in late 1800 to work as farmers and on railroads. So because they came to United States for their better life. The reason was that because on that time the British rule over India, and then the Indian people's life is not very good or in a decent life they are living. So that's why they move from India, especially the Sikh first move from India to the different countries, not only America, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and many other European countries as well. Next slide, please. So any community, wherever they live, they build a place to do their worship, and Sikh did the same thing. The first Gurdwara, meaning a Sikh temple, in the United States was built in Stockton, very close actually, in California in 1912. Inside the picture, you look that Sikh temple, the picture is taken this is original picture taken on the same years in 1912. Next slide, please. The man standing in the middle, his name is Dalip Singh Sandh, and he born in Sikh family. He was the first Asian American congressman elected in 1957, and Sikh really proud of this gentleman and appreciate their service to the community. Next slide, please. Like the other religions, Sikh has their own values. The Sikhs are believing in one God. They are believing meditations on God, sharing with others, earning an honest living. They are also believing in equality, fight injustice, and service to the community. Next slide, please. In this slide, actually, I try to show when the Sikhi is born and up to the Sikh scriptures. In this slide, there are three major milestones happen in the Sikh history. So we start from year 1400s. That is the Renaissance period. The first milestone is 1469, when the birth of first Sikh Guru, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and he was the founder of Sikhi. So 1492, Columbus reaches the America. 1500, rule of leaders like Francis Louis XIV, and 1600, British colonies established in North America. The second very important milestone is happened 1699, when the Sikh identity was formalized on Baisakhi Day by the 10th Sikh Guru, Guru Gobind Singh Ji. So even we are celebrating the Baisakhi in United States as well on April 13. So that day is also known as a harvest festival. So it means April 13, 1699, the Sikh identity was formalized. 1706, Benjamin Franklin is born in Boston. And then the most important milestone is 1708, when Guru Gobind Singh, the 10th Guru, gave eternal guruship to the Sikh scriptures. From 1469 to 1708, Sikhism evolved from the teaching of its founders Guru Nanak Dev Ji through a succession of 9 human gurus who developed the faith, established its institutions, and compiled its scriptures, culminating in Guru Gobind Singh's decision to make the holy book, the Guru Granth Sahib, the final and eternal Guru. So next slide, please. Scriptures. All we know that scripture in the Sikh history is a holy book. That holy book is known as a Guru Granth Sahib, is the same thing like the Christian has the Bible, Islam has Quran, Hindu has Gita or Ramayana, and Sikh holy books known as Guru Granth Sahibs. And Guru Granth Sahibs founded on the teaching of the 10 Guru. Their period is 1469 to 1708, which I already shows in the previous slide. So holy books embodies the Guru's teaching and guides Sikhs. If you look at the left side of the picture, that holy book is covered by a very important and precious piece of cloth. That is the respect for our. Why we do that? Because that the respect the Sikh giving to our holy book, Guru Granth Sahib. If you look at the right side of the picture, Sikh service consists of reading and singing from that holy book, Guru Granth Sahib. Next slide, please. Sikh has so many identities, but I don't have the time to go over each and everything. So I'm going to only few of them. The first very important identity is Dastar. Dastar meaning is a Sikh turban. So the Sikh turban, an article of faith that assert and dignity, the sovereignty of the wearers. So turban can be worn in a different style by the men's or women's. You can look at in the pictures. Every person has the turban in a different styles. Turban should not be touched without their consent. So very important rules you can say or concept in the Sikhism. So nobody can touch the turban without the consent of that individual. Next slide, please. Another important identity you can look at in this picture, the Sikh girls holding the Sikh flag, that known as a Nishan Sahib, the triangular flag of the Sikh faith featuring the khanda in the middle. So that khanda is the symbol of Sikhism, and in past, that khanda is also used for self-defense weapon as well. On the right side of the picture, you can see the Sikh flag that is almost 40 meters tall, always located in front of the Sikh temple or the Gurdwara. There is a reason behind it. The Nishan Sahib can be seen from afar so that anyone in need knows there is a Gurdwara, meaning is a Sikh temple nearby that can provide shelter and nourishment. Meaning it's open 24 hours, 7 days a week. Anytime, anyone can go there, stay there, and eat meal there, free of charge. Next slide, please. So if you look at in this slide, the diverse community peoples are sitting together. So that is the meaning for that. So why? Because everyone is welcome in the Gurdwara, meaning in the Sikh temple, regardless of gender, class, or religion. Gurdwara means is Guru, door to Guru. Next slide, please. Another very important, or you can say the important articles, the identity is a langar. Langar meaning is a vegetarian meal. That vegetarian meal served at every Gurdwara or every Sikh temple, you can say that. Langar is prepared and served by the volunteers. Everyone sits together on the floor to share the food in the spirit of equality. Equality is an important concept in the Sikhism. If you look at in that picture, everybody sitting on the floor together and eating the meal. It means that there is no rich, there is no poor. Everybody is equal and they must has to sit down on the floor and eat the food together. Next slide, please. Even though Sikhs are living in United States more than a centuries, but they are still facing lot of challenges. The number one challenge the Sikhs are facing these days, hate and discriminations. If you look at the picture, the poster, the Sikh individual holding in their hand is saying, educate the other community and end hate. Next slide, please. Another challenge, our Sikh students are bullying from the other kids, other student in school due to their appearance and externalizations of their faith, like wearing a turban or covering their head with a piece of cloth. So meaning we are unable to educate the other communities, parents and children that Sikh appearance. That's a very important challenge the Sikh students are facing at this point. Next slide, please. Another very important and the challenge the Sikh are facing is employment discrimination. It's not only in one sector, no matter is in a private or public sector, the discrimination the Sikhs are facing. More discriminations they are facing in the law enforcement sector because due to their Sikh articles of faith, including the turban and unshorn hair, have not impeded the ability of Sikhs to protect and serve their communities. So even though these are a little bit better, I can say that, but still in the law enforcement sector, the Sikhs are facing discriminations. Next slide, please. Another challenge is xenophobia and racial profiling. Definitely, Sikhs are facing a racial profilings because the Sikh community is more visible and vulnerable to racism than other religion groups. Not only the Sikh, I believe that the other minority communities living in United States, they are also facing that racial profilings challenge as well. But Sikh are more than the others. Next slide, please. So, since we are facing lot of challenges and Sikhs are trying to respond these kind of challenges in their ways. Go back, please. Slides. More. Yeah, here. The number one challenge respond they are doing the policy engagement. The Sikh community engages with the policy through advocacy, political representation, and partnership with government and law enforcement to promote civil rights, combat discriminations, and foster understanding. So this is actually a government level respond. The Sikhs are trying to do that. They are trying to convince the local, state, and federal levels elected official, so then they can make the law that has the zero tolerance and discriminations and hate crimes. Even though I know that there are the law already exist, but we need that law should be strictly and forcefully implemented. That's the Sikhs are doing in their response. So next slide, please. Another response the Sikhs are doing that is a seva. Seva mean is a service to others. In the previous slide, I tried to show that the Sikhs volunteer providing the meal to the diverse community who are inside the temple. But not only we are providing the food when somebody come to the Sikh temple. So Sikh volunteer usually go if any needy peoples, any hungry peoples are somewhere, like the homeless, then they go and provide the food to them as well. The best example I want to say that if anywhere has any kind of disaster, like earthquake, flooding, fires, the Sikh organization usually go there and provide the food, not only the food, any other items those victims needed, they provide them and show them, we are with you at this difficult time. In that way, they are showing they are helpful to the other community, regardless their religions. Next slide, please. And this is another important response is increase visibility, because the turban definitely increase the visibility. If you look at in the picture, the non-Sikh girl have the turban on her head and looking in the mirror and feel proud. She is feeling that she is different than the other girls. So I'll give you another example. If there are 100 people gathers in one place, and out of 100, only one person has the turban on his or her head that is more visible than the others. So, and I'm sure the people are looking, hey, this is, who's this guy? And then they definitely go and ask them, so what is the meaning of turban? And what is the meaning of Sikhism and Sikh? So then in that way, this is more education process that person can one-on-one giving that person, whoever asking the question to that person. That is why the turban is, we are saying, the increased visibility of the persons. Next slide. That's the last slide, but not least, and important slide as well, is allyship. Ally can show support by educating themselves about Sikhism, speaking out against bias, using their influence to promote inclusion, and supporting Sikh colleagues and friends by creating a sense of belonging. Meaning, in that slide, try to show that not only the Sikh, the other community peoples talking good thing about the Sikh history, Sikh cultures. I think this is more important and more impact than if the Sikh is saying, oh, we are good and then we are doing that things. If somebody else is saying that, that is actually more better. And then that's we try to be show in this picture. Next slide, please. Next slide is a thank you. But I want to say, before I say thank you, I'm sure presentation is done and you all have the answer, the question, who are the Sikh? Who are the Sikhs? And I'm sure you have that answer. If not, you has any kind of need more information, I'm available all. So offline, we can discuss more in detail. But in the meantime, please visit sikhcoalitions.org. They have tons of information about the Sikhism, and you can learn more and then understand who are the Sikh and what is the Sikhism. Thank you very much. And thank you for listening me. And especially thank you for the Sikh leaders they came and then celebrate this month as a awareness and appreciation month. Thank you. Good luck.
Good evening, directors. Mark Landgraf, Assistant General Manager, and welcome to our guests here tonight. I was going to read the draft resolution into the public record for your consideration. So Resolution 25-71, a resolution of the Governing Board of the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority recognizing November as Sikh Awareness and Appreciation Month. Whereas the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority envisions the Santa Clara Valley as a space for all residents to live, work, learn, and enjoy nature. Whereas the state of California recognizes November as Sikh American Awareness and Appreciation Month to acknowledge the significant contributions made by individuals of Sikh heritage to the community. And whereas Sikh Americans pursue diverse professions and walks of life, making rich contributions to the social, cultural, and economic vibrancy of our communities. Sikh Americans are doctors, attorneys, teachers, small business owners, and elected officials, and have made significant contributions in agriculture, medicine, technology, military service, and security and transportation services. And whereas Sikh farmers contribute abundantly towards the production of peaches, raisins, grapes, almonds, pistachios, okra, and other specialized crops of fruits, vegetables, and nuts in the United States. And whereas Sikhs originated in the Punjab region of South Asia and first entered California in 1899 through the Angel Island Immigration Station in San Francisco. During the early 20th century, thousands of Sikh Americans worked on farms, in lumber mills and mines, and on railroad construction projects. And whereas Sikhism is the 5th largest religion in the world, with more than 25 million Sikhs worldwide, including more than 500,000 Sikhs living in the United States, half of those living in California. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority recognizes and acknowledges the significant contributions made by Californians of Sikh heritage to the state and region, and hereby proclaims November as Sikh Awareness and Appreciation Month. So with that, I will hand it back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And Director Gill, thank you so much for your presentation. I learned a lot. Thank you. We can open the floor to the board for questions or comment.
Hi, I would like to thank all of you for being here this evening, and just to let my colleagues know that I've been the recipient of your hospitality and your welcoming, and I have attended a couple of times the big festival you have in the field by the Gurdwara, where you do the horses.
Yes.
And if anybody ever has a chance to go see what the Sikh community does on horseback, please go see, because it's phenomenal. It's amazing. It's colorful. It's just such a moving experience. And I hope that we can, Dr. Gill, find out when that's happening again, just so everybody can have the opportunity to go see some of the deep culture that is so unique to our communities. So thank you for coming, and Dr. Gill, thank you for bringing this to the board.
You're welcome, and thank you for actually all my community leaders. They just take the time and come here, and I don't have the wording, then I can just give them appreciations and welcome.
Okay, yes, thank you all for coming. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this item?
If there are any members of the public joining us via Zoom who would like to comment on this item, please raise your hand. There are none.
Okay, so we need to vote on the resolution. Okay. So we will be voting on resolution 25-71, recognizing November as Sick Awareness and Appreciation Month. Do I have a motion?
Also move.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Clerk, please call the vote.
Director Kennett,
Yes.
Director Sutherland,
Yes.
Director Alexander,
Yes.
Director Dominguez,
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes. Definitely, yes.
The motion passes.
Okay, thank you very much. And once again, thank you all for coming and being a part of this evening.
And Madam Chair, if we might have an opportunity to take a few photos
Sure.
with presentation of the resolution. And congratulations from me as well. So it's,
Maybe Director Gill.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
We have all the fixed. The front, I don't know.
Okay, sorry. Forward, come back. We'll stick with the logo on behind us. And then.
You good? Okay.
Are we ready? There we go. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And he has the general manager, so she's the one just. And this. All these are the. Welcome. Thank you very much. Anybody want to say anything?
Thank you, my friend. Thank you very much for coming once again.
Okay, if you want to be attend the rest of the meeting, most welcome, sit down. We'll bring me water, we can try. There's something anybody. You can go party, can we start doing it? Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. The next item is to accept the final audit report for fiscal year 24-25 as prepared by Moss, Levy, and Hartzheim LLP. And that's Justina. What's your last name? Teen?
Teen, yes. Good evening, directors. Justina Teen, Fiscal Services Officer. So tonight we are presenting the results of the authority's independent financial audit for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025. The auditors were on site for 2 days back in August of this year and conducted the rest of the audit process remotely. In summary, the auditors expressed an opinion that the financial statements have been presented fairly and free from material misstatement. And here with me tonight, virtually, is a representative from our auditor's office, Adam Geis, from Moss, Levy, and Hartzheim. And Adam's going to briefly discuss, excuse me, the audit standards and approach taken and present the audit results. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Adam.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yes, my name is Adam Geis. I was the partner in charge of the audit this year from Moss, Levy, and Hartzheim. This was my first year in charge of the audit, as Alex Home from our office had been in charge of it previously. And as Justina talked about, we went out to the authority back in August to conduct our field work. And then since then, we worked remotely to finish up the field work, go through drafting the report. And what you have presented here is the final version of the audited financial statements. While we come out to the site back in August, we documented and tested internal controls over various areas of the authority, including testing of disbursements, receipts, payroll, and then we also took an expanded look at employee reimbursements and credit cards. I'm happy to report that throughout our audit, we observed that the internal controls processes that were created were strong, and it appeared that all of the processes were being followed. So we have no findings to report, which is always a great thing. Also, while out there, we were working on the year-end balances. So what you're looking at here, the final balances are as of June 30th, 2025. We get all of the data from the agency, and then we look at all the backup documentation, compare balances to prior year, as well as test for proper cutoff of revenues and expenses, make sure that that expenses incurred before the end of the year, but not paid until after, get booked as expenses in that fiscal year. As a result, we did have a few adjustments, which are fairly typical for an audit. We made an adjustment for the GASB 87 leases, and then we did find one item paid after year end that needed to be expensed in the 24-25 fiscal year. And the adjustments were accepted by Justina and appear in the final report. And as Justina stated, pages 1 to 2 of this report present our audit opinion, which is an unmodified audit opinion, or which is the best type of audit opinion. It means we were able to get backup and support for everything presented in the report, and that we agree with all the numbers presented. Just a couple quick highlights since you have all the data in front of you. Page 3 through 8, this is the management's discussion and analysis. This is written by management, and it provides just a quick summary of everything presented later in the financial statements, which is a good just kind of quick read and overview. A couple other things I wanted to note, pages 16 and 17, the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in fund balance. This is, for those of you from the business world, this is comparable to like a profit and loss statement or an income statement. And the main thing I wanted to point out here is there was a decrease in fund balance to the assessment district number 1 and the Measure Q funds. but a substantial increase in fund balance to the Measure T fund and an increase as well to the capital reserve fund. Another item I just wanted to quickly mention on page 27, note 2. This is the note on the cash and investments. Couple tables here do a pretty good job of showing what type of investments the authority was invested in, at least as of the end of June, as well as their coming maturities and assessment of the risk of the investments. One thing I wanted to note is that basically, all of the cash and investments are in fairly safe investments. Page 29. This quick note just has the changes in the long-term liabilities. And what I wanted to point out here was the net pension liability was very consistent. It went up just a little over $20,000 compared to the prior year, which the pension liability has kind of jumped all over the place over the last 10 years. So it was kind of nice to see it being a little bit more consistent. What that means is that CalPERS had returns on investment fairly similar to what they were expecting, and that they had no major significant changes to their assumptions or anything. The last item I wanted to point out, page 38 and 39. This is the schedule. Page 38 is the schedule of the proportionate share of net pension liability, and then page 39 is the schedule of pension contributions. And you can see exactly how the pension liability and contributions have changed over the last 10 years. On page 38, while the proportionate share of net pension liability is estimated at 1.6 million, the actual amount paid on a year-to-year basis for the 2024-25 fiscal year is on page 39, and that was about $656,000. So roughly about a third of that pension liability. I wanted to thank Justina and her staff for all of the work done to get us all the information that we need. When we come out, we look through a lot of documentation. And I know that they're trying to keep up with their regular day-to-day work, and I just want to say that I appreciate how well organized they were and able to get us all the documentation we needed quickly. So that's about it for my overview, and I just want to open it back up to you guys if there's any questions.
Thank you very much. We can open the floor to the board for questions or comments. Okay, I don't see any questions from the board. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this item?
If there are any members of the public joining us via Zoom who would like to comment on this item, please raise your hand. There are none.
Okay, now it's time for the board to vote to accept the item, which is accept the final audit report for fiscal year 24-25 as prepared by Moss, Levy, and Hartzheim LLP. Do I have a motion? Thank you. We have a second. Okay, so we have a motion by Director Dominguez and a second by up on the board by Director Sutherland. Clerk, please call the vote.
Director Kennett.
Yes.
Director Sutherland.
Yes.
Director Alexander.
Yes.
Director Dominguez.
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item is accept final Measure Q, Measure T, parcel tax audit report for fiscal year 2024-2025 as prepared by Moss, Levy, and Hartzheim LLP. And once again, Justina Dean.
Sure. Good evening again, directors. As required by both the Measure Q and Measure T expenditure plans, an annual independent audit shall be conducted to assure that the revenues expended by the authority is in line with the fiscal safeguards that are stated in the plans. For the fiscal year 24-25, the authority received a little over 8 million in parcel tax revenues. In compliance with the plan, the authority did not spend more than 0.1% of the revenues received, or that comes out to approximately $8,038 for costs related to the expenditure plan oversight committee's activities. The agency also did not charge more than 2 million from the Measure T to pay for administrative expenses. The remaining balance of any of our administrative expenses were covered by other funds. And overall, the authority recorded a little over 1.7 million in total expenses to Measure Q and over 6 million to Measure T. And this final audit will be presented to the Expenditure Plan Oversight Committee for review in January 2026. And that is the end of my presentation.
Okay, we can open the floor to the board for questions or comments.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Thank you for the quick presentation on this. Appreciate it. Is there a certain pace of that you're anticipating for the expenses? Is there a timeline that you're tracking this to, or I guess because you were indicating that you came in like 1/10 of a percentage, so is that, would you anticipate that to be a lot?
So actually, for that specific safeguard, in our expenditure plans, we had put certain kind of caps to the spending. And what happens is for any type of expenses related to the activities of the oversight committee, we can only spend up to that $8,000. And so in compliance with the expenditure plans, we have not exceeded that cap. Yeah. Mhm.
Any additional questions? Okay, are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this item?
If there are any members of the public who are joining us via Zoom who would like to comment on this item, please raise your hand. There are none.
Okay, the board will now vote to accept the item. Do I have a motion? No motion. Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll be second.
Okay. All right, so for accept final measure Q, measure tax audit report for fiscal year 2024-2025 as prepared by Moss, Levy, and Hartzheim. We have a motion by Director Dominguez and a second by Director Gill. Clerk, please call the vote.
Director Kennett,
Yes.
Director Sutherland,
Yes.
Director Alexander,
Yes.
Director Dominguez,
Yes.
Director Gill.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item number 4. Receive presentation on the Open Space Authority's GIS program updates. And this is Anna Gargle.
Good evening, Board of Directors. I'm Anna McGarrigle, the GIS Administrator at the Authority. I'm very excited to share an informational item with you this evening. I'm very excited to share an informational item with you this evening to tell you about our GIS program. And I hope to leave you with some examples of how we're using technology to advance our mission. You see a lot of the final products from the program in this venue, and I'll demonstrate how we produce some of those products. First, we'll talk a little bit about what Geographic Information Systems is, go through some of the program components of cartography, spatial analysis, and digital tools and administration, and then dive into an example of how we string all these components together to deliver a project through trail scoping. And we'll talk about the Rancho Cañada del Oro Open Space Preserve Regional Trail Planning Project. Can you hear me all right? Am I speaking?
Better.
Okay.
Thank you.
First, what is GIS? A show of hands, does anyone know what GIS is in this room? Director Dominguez, Director Alexander. Awesome, great. Well, GIS stands for Geographic Information Systems. It's a ecosystem of technology, software, and hardware that we use to help us understand place. And the foundation of GIS is geographic data. Geographic data can include boundaries, landmarks, elevation, aerial imagery, even LiDAR and radar. And once we have this geographic data, we can use a GIS to help us to visualize things in maps and to perform analysis to help us find patterns and even predict trends. And all GIS geographic data is a representation of what's going on in the real world. Most of us have used Google Maps, right? If you've used Google Maps, you've used a GIS. You're looking at the app, it's showing geographic data like roads, business places, traffic even, and then it's using an analysis pattern, a routing algorithm to help get you from point A to point B. So I guess keep that in mind for those new to GIS as we go through some of these examples. We've been using GIS at the Open Space Authority since 2001, when Derek Newman introduced handheld GPS devices to help us map infrastructure for land management purposes like gates, roads, trails. We've also been using GIS for key conservation planning projects since then, including the Santa Clara Valley Greenprint and the Landscape Linkage Report. Now the GIS program's housed in the Planning, Design, and Construction Department under Lucas Shellhammer, and it's staffed by myself, the GIS administrator, recently joined by the GIS technician Lillian Amaral. The three program areas that we focus on are cartography, spatial analysis, and digital tools and administration. All staff at the authority touch GIS or have the opportunity to. We have 12 staff who use the software on their desktops to produce their own maps and do analysis, and about 30 field users between field department and natural resources doing mobile editing and mobile use, and the remaining staff are view only. Esri dominates the marketplace for GIS software. We use ArcGIS Pro on the desktop and the companion software of ArcGIS Online in the cloud. We also heavily use automation software called FME and Python to do our work more efficiently. For hardware, we use our Bad Elf Flex, which is right here. You can see Vincent, our IT technician, and David Mock, natural resource tech, using it in the field. This is a high-resolution GPS device. Now let me transition and talk a little bit about those program components, starting with cartography. Cartography is the art and science of making maps, and humans have been doing it for millennia to help us understand the world around us. Here's a hand-drawn map of Laguna Seca. All the maps I'll show you were drawn on the computer, but I love looking at these beautiful historic maps. We'll see some more from Braden. Around us in this room, there's some examples of public communication cartography. In this category, we're usually trying to depict the work we do in a clear way. I get to work with our communications team to develop public communication cartography for press releases, and with our grants team to develop maps for grant applications. And here, like I said, we're trying to depict very clearly well-known data about where we're doing work. We also do a lot of trail and patrol maps for our field operations department. Trail maps are for visitors experiencing our preserves, and patrol maps are for emergency responders who are responding on our preserves. This includes key information like routes, access points, and some jurisdictional boundaries as well. And then we do a lot of maps for specific projects. These usually involve geographic data that we've collected in the field and are displaying to visualize a specific, very specific attribute about a project. So on the left is a map showing invasive plants at Laguna Seca and some treatments for CV Camp. And the larger map here is a little bit of a preview. You're going to see a full presentation on this project next month from Rachel Clemens. But here's Laguna Seca with some field collected data symbolized according to its attributes, these historic tile drains, as well as the results of an excavation project. So I won't spoil that great presentation. You can look forward to it. Now moving into spatial analysis. This is the area of GIS where we count things and we do analysis to look for patterns on the landscape. And I want to walk into spatial analysis by talking about a recent example of a day-to-day an analysis example for CV Camp. You saw the end result of this example last month, Nick Perry's presentation about restoration opportunities, but I wanted to just walk you through it here. So here's an aerial image of Coyote Valley, and if you aren't familiar with it from staring at it in aerial imagery for hours like I end up doing on the computer, you might not know exactly where we are here. So let's add some property boundaries and roads. You can start to see those parcels take shape. It's a little faint on these screens, I apologize. And then we can add a layer for current habitat here. Each habitat type has its own color here that's being displayed. And now I've added a little bit more features to make this a full map figure, a title, an inset map, a scale bar, and a legend. Because this data is in a digital geographic information system, we can run a quick analysis and get a sum of the acreages in each of those categories that we have represented in the geographic data. And for CV Camp, we care about existing conditions, and we also care deeply about the restoration scenarios. So here's a draft restoration scenario in the same type of digital geographic information system. You can see the reoaking and Tulare Meadows and some restoration on Fisher Creek. The colors have changed between these two figures, and we can create that same sum of the habitats and produce a quick analysis of deltas. And this is all very approximate based on preliminary concepts for restoration. But I think this example illustrates really well how we can take data very quickly, perform an analysis, create visualizations, and turn that into insights that are delivered to our planning team, any department here at the agency that gets incorporated actively into the work that they do. So now I'll move into some of the larger projects using spatial analysis that I want to tell you about. For conservation planning, I think the Green Print's the best example. This was done in 2013, and in this example, the team took well-known geographic data representing conservation values like farmland, soils, watersheds, biodiversity, and assigned weights and merged that into one integrated conservation value. And this really strong spatial analysis still guides our land protection strategies. We're also using spatial analysis for natural resource planning. This is the work of Lillian that you'll hear about next month for the American Badger Habitat Corridor modeling, where we're mapping habitat and then on the computer using algorithms to generate corridors where badgers might travel. We're also using spatial analysis to monitor and manage our lands. For our conservation grazing program, we're using a approach called Harper where we take aerial imagery, satellite imagery, and field collected data, and we're using machine learning algorithms to generate biomass estimates. And that tells us how much grass the cows have left on the ground after they're finished grazing there, which then we turn into actionable information to share to our grazers. Moving into digital tools and administration, this is where we've grown the most in the last 3 years. And this is mobile and web tools that help enable specific workflows across the agency. All of our digital tools are built in ArcGIS Online, which is a cloud-based software as a service solution. This is where we house our data, where we build, develop custom and out-of-the-box web mapping applications. We're using the mobile tools available to us as well, Field Maps and Survey123. The main digital tool to highlight is the Authority Atlas, which is our internal Google Maps. This has our internal catalog of geographic data, including our property boundaries, our roads, our trails, our gates, our troughs, our water utilities, things that we care about deeply and our staff want to actively know where they are. Where it also features geographic data from our neighboring agencies like county park trails, as well as statewide data sets like fire hazard severity zone and national data sets like watersheds and soils. It's all just in one place. And we've gotten really positive feedback from staff having the ability to access this at their fingertips and search for where things are. It's currently licensed only for staff. We're not able to share it with partners or others. We're also using digital tools for public access monitoring at Mount Yakima County Ridge. Here, staff are inputting observations and visitor counts into their mobile device that we've administered and configured. And all of that data goes immediately into this data store, which is feeding a dashboard showing summary level data about the inputs. Then decision makers like Aaron and Derek are using these numbers to inform their adaptive management plan for the preserve. So those are some examples of kind of the core components of what I do. And now I'd really like to dive into an example of how those are strung together to deliver an active project. So we'll talk about the Rancho Cañada del Oro Open Space Preserve Regional Trail Planning Project and how the project team makes recommendations about where to construct new trails. And this project is led by Jennifer Pathery. So in the past, we haven't had as much technology available to us. And so we would use paper maps in the field. We would flag on site visits, and we would maybe GPS some points, but it would end up in disparate software. But now we have access to all of this integrated technology that allows us to collect data in a very streamlined way and serve it up for conversations and decision making in one place. So the way that this looks for the team when they're interested in building new trails is they and their geotechnical consultants, they draw proposed trails on the computer. And then the team goes out in the field and tries to walk those proposed alignments. They're kind of imaginary lines. So they're using this device and the tablet to help tell them where they are if they're on that alignment from the computer. And sometimes that looks like the beautiful meadow on the left in springtime when it's all beautiful and green and there's wildflowers that day. And sometimes it looks like where Braden is traversing on the right, where it's steep, there's brambles, there's poison oak, it's less desirable. And while the team is out there, they can drop points for opportunities and constraints, like where they want to put a bench or where they might need to put a bridge. And they can add photos and notes. So there's no more hand-drawn notes that might not make it back, or you're not really sure where you meant to have that note where the bridge should be. And all of this goes into the cloud database. We're able to do this all offline as well. So that then when the team's back at the office, they can open up this interactive web mapping application that displays that data that they collected. They can interact with their notes, with the photos they took, and they can use this as a common operating picture for conversations that happen next about the value propositions of different routes, including like, oh, that one's really nicely in the shade, but we'd have to build a 25-foot bridge there. Or, oh, that's in the grassland, it's really great, but we'd have to cut through a fence. So everything's in one place, and those conversations can happen more efficiently than they did without the technology. I think it's really interesting to look at the trails that were considered and the ones that are now under consideration. On the left, and all these black lines are the ones that were considered throughout the planning process. This is 16.83 miles of kind of spaghetti you see here. And on the right, the project team through that process whittled it down to 3 miles. And I'm, of course, oversimplifying this complex process that our phenomenal planning team goes through. Since the data is already in the system, once that is whittled down, we can use that easily to make maps for venues like the Land Use and Stewardship Committee, which I think you saw this there recently, and use it for outreach with our communications team. Here's some maps used on Instagram and through the survey work done for public outreach recently. So ultimately, using this technology for a process like trail scoping helps us collect that data really cohesively so that we can turn that data into information. It's centralized, which makes the whole process more efficient and shareable. We get that common operating picture for discussion. And then when it comes time to get permits and construction, that process is streamlined because the data already exists. And then, of course, we get to make the pretty maps out of it at the end of the day. And I think that's kind of hopefully popping the hood a little bit about how some final products might come to this venue in that complete form. You know, more of what you see on this screen. So that's a little bit about how the technology fuels this and leads to more data-driven recommendations and decisions. Next month, you'll hear from Lillian about the American Badger Habitat Corridor modeling. Another big initiative for the GIS program is our infrastructure and utility inventory process. That's on the work plan under the Atlas project. There's a lot there that will feed into our upcoming asset management system and other long-term capital planning and budgeting processes. And we're also going to be embarking on some trail map redesign in the future. So we'd love to come back and share if there's interest there. So thank you so much for this opportunity to share. I hope you got to see some cool maps and learn a little bit more about how this technology is powering the work that comes to you behind the scenes. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated the deep dive where, you know, you made it very clear how things happen and how it's all interactive and working in the field and working back here. So thank you. Like to see if the board has any questions or comments.
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you for this explanation. And I could understand what you were saying, and I could see how this would be the most effective way to communicate amongst yourselves and how exciting it is because it's all right there for everybody to see. So thank you very much for making it simple to understand.
Good, my pleasure.
Thank you, Anna, for the presentation. I agree with Director Sutherland. It was definitely a great way to see how you connect the dots and how all the other presentations that we get every month really tie into all the GIS work that you're doing on the ground. So thank you for that. And I think my only question is, aside from the data that you're sharing already publicly, has there been conversations around sharing your data for educational purposes with, for instance, like higher education institutions that like are also, you know, building the next generation of GIS leaders, I suppose?
Through the chair, I'll answer that and say, not yet, but I think that's a great suggestion that I'd love to take action on. We share a little bit of our data, the source data publicly, and periodically I do get requests from students who are doing projects and they want to study one of our preserves, and we share data with them. And there are platforms that exist, and other agencies have great precedents for sharing their data on public community hubs so that they don't have to request it through us. So I think that's something in the future with as we grow as in a GIS shop that we can definitely look towards and have goals to do. I'd say our modern GIS shop is fairly young. And so in the last 3 years of my tenure here, we've grown immensely in the ability to provide those internal digital tools and internal resources and administration. And so I think a next phase of our program will be looking out into sharing outwardly, like you're suggesting.
Great, thank you.
So how long we are using this GIS?
Since 2001.
This is SaaS, right? It's a cloud.
We've been using GIS as a foundational ecosystem of tools since 2001. We've been using ArcGIS Online, which is that SaaS cloud platform, since I'm gonna say 2020.
Oh.
In some capacity. Now, in the last 3 years, we've turned that subscription into these widespread tools.
Subscription, which company is that?
Esri.
So we have that, like the maintenance or everything is included there, and then training as well.
Yes, yeah. It's
So-
we pay for the desktop licenses, and then for ArcGIS Online, we pay for cloud services. How many desktop licenses? I think we own about 15 licenses, and we use 12 for GIS users, 1 for an intern, and 2 for our GIS staff.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Put me inside that. I can look at that. Thank you.
Are there any members of the public who would like to comment?
Yeah, finally, I got my thoughts together.
Trying to skip.
As a visual person, I've always appreciated the results of what you do, and it seems to have come so far, so quickly. Really, almost to the point, you're doing such a good job, it's almost to the point we're taking you for granted. How much there is behind it, so that's wonderful. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kenneth.
One more quick question. Are we just doing any kind of a customize that one, or we cannot do that?
We can do that. That's something I have slight background in, but Esri and ArcGIS Online, they have designed these tools that you can configure out of the box. And so that is the best use of our staff time, configuring out of the box tools.
That you were saying that the machine language.
Mhm.
So we have anybody expert on the machine language in our agency?
In other agencies?
Yeah.
Here, oh yeah, we're using machine learning in our Harper process. A lot of algorithms built into the software. They're called, the umbrella's term is geoprocessing tools that are used to perform spatial analysis. And that includes machine learning algorithms. It includes some of the wildlife corridor modeling algorithms that Lillian is using. And so we're using those as
Artificial intelligence.
machine learning is technically part of artificial intelligence. So technically, yes, although it's not the type of AI that we're seeing in, overcoming our world today. That's more generative AI. These are machine learning algorithms that are probably older than I am, that are very well established and built into a laptop that I can carry around.
Thank you.
Through the chair, if I may, one thing that Anna touched on that I want to emphasize for the board in terms of just kind of planting seeds is that, there's the cartographic part of it, the great maps that we produce, and those are definitely the deliverables that we rightly celebrate. A huge part of this system for Derek and I is helping manage the land. As you can imagine, 30,000 acres, there's thousands of assets out there on the landscape. We manage invasive plant species. She showed you a map of that. All that stuff under the hood is really part of how we take care of this place. And it's really using the sort of geo databases that are built into the software. Yes, we make maps sometimes, but it's often actually more looking at data, modifying data, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say one of the big changes over my career has been, going from clipboards in the field, right, to maybe spreadsheets, 10 years ago. I still hold on to them. And now really this transition into GIS-based asset management, land management, stewardship, ecological studies, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a growing part of how we take care of the land.
Thank you, Aaron. I can totally see how that would be really helpful for all of you in the field and back here as well. A wonderful tool. Thank you again for your presentation.
Thanks.
Do we have any members of the public who would like to comment on this item?
Yes, Ron Van Cleve, you may unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes.
I was just curious, I didn't see any 3D types of in the presentation. And I was curious, just does the team use tools like Onyx when they're out in the field, as well as for the assessments or evaluations that are being performed? Because when you have the 3-dimensional perspective that something like Onyx platform brings, it's incredibly valuable.
Through the chair, I'll answer that. Onyx has great fields. It's a mobile application, for those who don't know, that offers more trail-based, a trail-based navigation experience that allows you to go offline on your phone. We, instead of proprietary applications like Onyx, we are using Esri tools like Field Maps, which allow us to configure the mobile application using our own catalog of geographic data. So when we send our staff into the field, we are configuring and administering the content that goes in there and allowing them to go offline in specific areas and collect data. And you're right, we didn't feature any 3D visualizations today. In Santa Clara County, we're super lucky that the county is a very well-established GIS program that has conducted several LiDAR flights over the last 5 years. They have a LiDAR program where they're acquiring high-resolution 3D data. We do incorporate that into some of the products that we produce, like our ambient hillshades and multi-directional hillshades. And we're using 3D elevation data more in the behind the scenes way. And sometimes we use it to produce things like, I think it's not letting me go back, but in the El Toro visualization on the first public communication slide, there's an example of a 3D view. It's a little small here and hard to see. So we are using it in some extent, but most of the time you don't see it in the final product. Thank you for the question.
Okay, any other questions?
Give a comment. Yeah, come on.
I just want to say you're doing a great job. I've been in GIS for over 30 years. So it's great. Thank you, Carolyn, for inviting me down to come see your presentation. And you should be aware that there's a whole lot of work that goes behind the scenes. The end deliverable, the maps, they don't really give you a good sense of how much work these GIS people do to create the data, to manipulate it, to analyze it. And just the labeling alone on some of these maps, yes, is kind of an arduous task. So I just want to say I'm very impressed and great job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Through the chair, I'll add that Derek Newman has built this incredible stand to display this giant map that you also see over here. It's great to have an opportunity to use this. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So this item is informational and there's no board action needed. Okay, the next item, receive presentation on Coyote Valley and Spreckles Hill Trail public survey findings, and that's Braden Will.
So good evening, directors. Jennifer Pez, Senior Open Space Planner. I'm here to present Braden Will, our Coyote Valley Planning Intern. So Braden came to us in May of this year. Next week, at the end of the week, he'll be leaving. Braden was previously with the Open Space Authority as an open space aide. He left to pursue a degree at UC Berkeley in forestry and environmental economics. He came back to us in the capacity of the Coyote Valley Planning Intern to support the work of the Coyote Valley Conservation Areas Master Plan, or CV Camp. He did more than support. He really owned and led some of the engagement work that he's going to present on tonight. So that included developing and administering 2 surveys. He worked across departments to organize and promote engagement opportunities and events. He was respectful and collaborative with Open Space Authority partners, and was welcoming and knowledgeable resource in working with the public. Out with the public. So we just wanted to say, Braden, we really appreciate your service, and thank you so much, and I'll pass it over to you.
Board, staff, good evening. As Jen just said, and thank you so much for the introduction, my name is Braden Will, and I'll be presenting tonight on I know it's been a long night, and to get everyone really excited and riled up, I know it's something that gets me excited. I'll be presenting on surveys tonight, specifically the Coyote Valley and Sparkles Hill Trail surveys that I ran over the course of the summer. This is all done, as Jen said, over the course for the Coyote Valley Conservation Areas Master Plan. And just to give, I know our illustrious long-range planning manager, Nick Perry, gave a presentation at the last board meeting about it, but just to give an overview and a little bit of background, I want to remind everyone that CV Camp is an incredibly collaborative process and something that incorporates so many different areas of expertise and so many different facets, things such as habitat, restoration for wildlife, landscape linkages, protecting and restoring groundwater and water resources, natural, cultural, and historic resource interpretation, public use and access and recreation, climate change and invasive species management, regional connections, as well as community connection, local agriculture and agritourism, economic vitality and sustainable transportation routes, and of course, connecting people to nature. So these are all parts of the larger CV Camp process that together we hope creates one cohesive plan that then informs what we hope to do for the future of Coyote Valley and the future of this landscape. The work that I did really focused specifically on regional connections and public use and access. And for those two tenets, we focused specifically on Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve and Sparkles Hill as the two areas that we looked at for those pieces. Starting first with Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve, can I see a show of hands of everyone who's been to Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve before? So virtually everyone, but in case you're not aware, it was first opened to the public in 2015. Currently, the preserve is 4 miles of trail across 348 acres of open space. It's a really beautiful preserve, but the reason that we were really interested in it for a focus of one of our surveys was the current active user base that's already there. It's a contiguous property with the rest of the conservation areas, and we wanted to look at the users who are already there as people who are already engaged and connected with the landscape. We wanted to understand things like the user groups, who's currently using it, what they're using it for, trail design preferences of those groups, siting preferences, connection interest, and using them all to really understand future visitors throughout the valley. The survey in total generated 536 responses across the narrow focus of just those active users. This is done both in an in-person format through tabling done out of the preserve, and additionally through an online format that was broadcast via CV Camp eBlast, our Open Space Authority newsletter, media advisories, and social media posts, as well as outside circulation through groups associated with the authority. The responses that were generated primarily came from areas in and around Coyote Valley, although it touched on every board district and in areas outside of our jurisdiction throughout Santa Clara County, as well as in Santa Cruz, Monterey County, and generated more results north in the Bay Area that unfortunately did not fit on my map. So we also asked the age groups of those who took the survey. We found both questions that we asked what age group were the respondents, but we also wanted to know questions about the age group of those with whom our respondents were typically enjoying natural open spaces with. The conjunction of these helped us to understand not only who was taking our survey, but also the larger swath of people who may in future come to Coyote Valley and who our respondents may be considering in their answers. We asked them as well in understanding the user groups and who these people are, their main motivation for visiting the preserve, as well as the typical activity, or you could think of this as the recreational modality of how they're engaging with their main motivation. We found that getting exercise, enjoying peace and quiet, and experiencing adventure were predominantly the experiences people came for, and they tried to enjoy that through primarily hiking and biking. We chose these specific question answers because they mirror previous surveys that we've done in 2023, and the results are very closely linked, showing that we do have a good understanding of our current visitors and hopefully future visitors to the valley. We also asked a question about whether our respondents would prefer trails and hills or valley floor. And not surprising for people coming to a preserve with trails in the hill, they prefer trails in the hills. But this does highlight that the current preserve design is really in tune with this demand, but there's an opportunity for us to expand the kind of users that are coming to the preserve and offer a more well-rounded preserve experience by creating trails and valley floors that are not currently shown in the authority's trail portfolio. So now that we know who the users were, we had an interest in understanding where they want to go throughout the valley. Starting from Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve, we wanted to understand whether these people had an interest in connections within Coyote Valley, so connections across the valley floor within other areas of CV Camp, or utilizing CV Camp as a regional connection to other existing parks and open spaces. Asking those two questions, we found that responses were virtually identical with a very slight preference for connections within the valley. Overall, this shows that people have an interest in more trails, which is always a good thing. It shows that we're doing a good job with the trails that we already have, and people are excited for more access and more opportunities to recreate within Coyote Valley. We also had an interest in understanding public access and more regional trail connections. Coyote Valley is a very complicated landscape with a lot of different opportunities and constraints, such as agriculture, hydrological features, riparian and habitat zones. The figure that you're seeing on screen right now is a representation of the county's countywide trails master plan. You'll see that a lot of the routes that are currently positioned on that master plan include routes that are along roadways. We don't yet understand exactly where the ultimate trail alignment will lie, but we had an interest in understanding, given these different constraints and the different opportunities that are provided by the Countywide Trails Master Plan, what experience might be afforded if we did position trails closer to roadways as well as in other areas. So to that end, we asked directly, how does being near adjacent roadways affect trail experience? Respondents overall showed either a slight or significant detracting experience by being near roadways, with some showing a slight or significant improvement. Those who selected improvement predominantly selected biking as their recreation modality, showing that roadways do have an opportunity to afford an important recreational opportunity within the valley. But otherwise, we, as an agency, we found that people don't necessarily like being next to 55 mile per hour traffic while they're hiking. We also asked what trail surface respondents would prefer on New Valley Ford trails and found that most would prefer an unpaved dirt trail, with some selecting compacted hard surface or paved trails. This is also in line with the results that I discussed earlier, that people are coming for a quiet, natural experience. And these kind of trail pathways help replicate that experience and enhance that for visitors. Now that we had framed in people's mind the idea of these Valley Ford trails, we also asked what activities they might enjoy along them. The results for this, hiking, biking for recreation, visiting local farms, as well as running and the other options, are very similar to those which were shown in current use, mimicking that people are interested in utilizing Valley Floor, not only for what they're currently using the preserve for, but also an engagement with the unique features that Coyote Valley has to offer. So those were some of the questions that we asked and some of the selected results that we found from that. So that was Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve. The other location that we had to focus on was Sparkles Hill, which is located more directly in the center of CV Camp. It's adjacent to the intersection of Santa Teresa and Bailey, and is something that if you drive through the valley is a very prominent geographic feature. Here's a more close-up picture of it. And not only is it at the geographic center of the valley, but it also really represents the cultural history, and through it you can see it as a lens for the valley as a whole. So to set that and really help you understand why we spent such a focus on this specific part of the valley, I'm just going to do a quick overview of some of the history of Sparkles Hill and incidentally share some of the history of Coyote Valley as a whole. So it's important to note that since time immemorial, Sparkles Hill, as well as all of Coyote Valley, has been the ancestral homeland of the Ohlone people, the Almatson, the Tamien, and the Muwekma peoples. The focus that I'll be discussing is really just the past 200 years of that period. So zooming in, the story really begins with Jose Figueroa, who was at the time governor of Alta California, who in 1834 gave Mexican land grant to Juan Alvarez. Pictured on screen is the first known map of Coyote Valley, granting it to Juan Alvarez. It's not exactly the most detailed, but it does give the general features of the valley as we know it today, including Laguna Seca in the left corner. Captain William Fisher then arrived in 1843 from Baja California and purchased the property. Seen here is another map picturing in more detail Coyote Valley. During this period, and most of what I'm discussing, the primary use of it was agriculture and ranching, something which the Fisher family and future families would continue in the valley. William Fisher married Liberata Sesenia, who after his death in 1850 inherited Rancho Laguna Seca and all of Coyote Valley. She had a daughter named Mary, who would eventually marry Daniel Murphy, a figure who those familiar with South Carolina history may recognize. They had a daughter named Diana, who married a certain Hiram Morgan Hill, a name which may or may not be familiar to some people. If it were not for the union of these two families, Morgan Hill, as a city that we know today, may not exist in the same form as we know. Daniel Murphy would later buy Liberata Sesenia's share in the ranch, and in 1858 would sell Sparkles Hill to Fiacro Fisher after partition. Fiacro would sell later to W.C. Wilson in 1876, who, upon his death, would sell to George Polimas and the Polimas family. They resided on Spreckles Hill property for about 30 years. They referred to it as the Cerro Alegre or Happy Hill Rancho. And publications at the time positioned them as potentially some of the first conservation-minded owners in Coyote Valley. There's a quote on screen right now that kind of goes over that. Their tenure ended in 1914 when A.B. Spreckles of Spreckles Sugar Company fame purchased the lands, also the current namesake of the hill. Pictured on screen is a sugar beet dump from sugar beets which were grown on Spreckles Hill's property in Coyote Valley. Pictures courtesy of Santa Clara County Parks. Spreckles would have the property for a little over a decade, and in 1926 would sell the property following a virus which killed most sugar beets and left the company in financial ruin. He would sell it to the Crowley family, who would continue ranching and agriculture for a number of years. It would then go through several other land transformations, which are not necessarily important until we get to 1989, when the land was acquired by a land developer here in the South Bay. This period, which included both the dot-com and the tech boom in the South Bay, really invigorated ideas for land development in Coyote Valley and proposals to convert what is now Tulare Meadows and the Laguna Seca property into large-scale office parks. Spreckles Hill was laid with infill and utilized as a staging ground for material that you can see on the right during this period. Thankfully, this did not come to pass, as in 2020, the Open Space Authority, in conjunction with the Wildlife Conservation Board, Peninsula Open Space Trust, and the California Coastal Conservancy, purchased both the Spreckles Hill property as well as the North Coyote Valley, Laguna Seca, and Tulare Meadow properties to conserve forever. So now that you have heard all that history, this is what Spreckles Hill looks like today. It is an incredibly beautiful feature of the valley, and if you ever have an opportunity to get out there, it's something I highly recommend. Our educational programs actually do in-person guided activities, which for the survey we made heavy use of. The survey that we did there was primarily done with in-person guided participants to these events. We did 6 guided interpretive hikes. We brought out 67 participants and generated 52 survey responses. This project is ongoing and more survey responses are expected. So the results I'm going to discuss are really preliminary of what we've done so far. The 6 interpretive guided hikes were done on a monthly format as well as in a special event format that were done to reach specific communities. So after in-person surveying, what do we want to learn by bringing people out here? Well, we had interests in amenity preferences, trail design, arrival modalities, connection priorities, and the agency's justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility principles. To that end, we did 2 special bilingual hikes with the Vietnamese American Service Center and the Hispanic Access Foundation in Vietnamese and Spanish, respectively. These hikes were done with live interpreters to provide the bilingual format and help incorporate feedback from these communities to create a more equitable outcome for CV Camp and the planning process. So with that in mind, some of the questions that we had included what methods visitors would use to reach Spreckles Hill. It's located at the geographic center, so understanding how people want to come here is helpful in understanding how they may want to access the valley as a whole. We wanted to know whether people had interest in arriving via trails, via a new staging area located near the base of the hill, access along the current VTA Route 68 bus stops, or cycling access along Santa Teresa Boulevard. The responses that have gone so far from the respondents who have been out to Spreckles Hill indicated that those with most interest would utilize trails from the existing preserve and utilizing a new staging area, with less interest in bus and bike access, although there was still a portion that expressed an interest in those modalities. We also asked what amenities we preferred at the base of Spreckles Hill. Those who have answered the survey so far have an interest in restrooms and interpretive signage and overlooks. You can see all the results here. It was an interesting, well, not exactly surprising, people need to poop, but result that restroom was number 1. We also asked which improvements could be made to the existing rancher that currently accesses at the top of the hill. We found that smoother walking surfaces, more shade, with respondents heavily caveating that they would prefer a vegetated shade rather than built experiences. So trees rather than shade structures, as well as other possibilities that we could utilize to enhance the experience and make it more accessible for people coming to the property. It's important again to note that this survey work is ongoing. We intend to do more engagement and learn more about people's interest in Spreckles Hill and the design that will eventually take place out there. So looking at next steps, the project team is focusing on utilizing these 2 surveys that I helped run in conjunction with all of those other pieces that I talked about to create concept alternatives, which hopefully January 22nd, will go to the board and be presented to you all. And then throughout spring 2026, we have to do community engagement on those concept alternatives to share out to the public and help inform the vision that we look for the future. And that brings me to the end. So thank you all very much. Do you have any questions, please?
Thank you very much. Those sound like great surveys. I am with the people who voted for the restrooms. That always works. So thank you. Are there, we can open the floor to the board for questions or comments?
I'm definitely looking forward to this. Considering this is one of two hills we're trying to work trails on, so looking forward to it. Well done.
Thank you.
I'd like to echo Director Kennett's comments. Thank you very much for this presentation. Very, very, very informative, and I love the graphs and yes to back this.
Great presentation. It was beautiful to see and appreciate your work, the work that you put into it, and just being here tonight. I have a couple questions. The first one, congrats on 536 people doing your survey. Like, that's incredible work. What was your goal for survey collection is question one. And then question two is if you could share a little bit more about your approach on making the collection of data on demographics optional.
Yeah. So to answer the first question, the kind of reasonable expectation that we hope to get was 500. So we hit that. We were right on the money with that sample size. The idea with making those demographic questions optional was we wanted to collect as much results as we could. And we thought that by making them optional, we may collect response from people who otherwise wouldn't be comfortable sharing that information.
It's a great presentation. I really enjoyed the history, whatever you just explained. It was really a great, and then even I didn't know that, but that history, but thank you very much for providing us that information.
Thank you.
Yes, I enjoyed the history too. Thank you. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment on this?
If there are any members of the public joining us via Zoom who would like to comment on this item, please raise your hand. Or none.
Okay, thank you. This item's informational. There's no board action needed. Once again, thank you very much. Okay, now we move on to committee meeting summaries. We had the Administration and Budget Committee this evening. That was Justina. I was looking for her again. She brought in Kara Hooks from Chandler Asset Management and about our investment update. And she went through a lot of details about the current economic climate. The government shutdown has halted the release of key economic data, how the tariffs continue to cloud the forecast. Just went through a lot of information, but I think the bottom line is that we seem to be in good shape. We're approaching our third year with this investment company. Our yield looks good. We have robust secondary markets, which provide some additional protection. We've moved from 14 million to 15.5 million. So it was all very reassuring. Sarah, would you like to add?
You already explained everything. I think I don't have anything to add anymore.
Okay.
Maybe ask Lee if she has any extra things to redo that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think you covered everything beautifully. Yeah, and I really appreciate your last comments that were in very good shape.
Yeah. Okay, great. Now we're on to informational reports. General Manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening. And I'm actually going to defer to Mark Landgraf, who's going to do our report out this evening. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, good evening, members of the board. Mark Landgraf, Assistant General Manager. So in three areas, I had some brief comments. One is an update on the Power Santa Clara project. That's the project by LS Power to perform grid reliability upgrades to the grid in Santa Clara Valley, especially their plans to put a high voltage DC terminal originally proposed in Coyote Valley. That is currently still the primary proposal, but there's an alternative that's environmentally preferred for co-location with PG&E. We're currently awaiting word between PG&E and LS Power regarding an agreement for that co-location, and have prepared a press release with a joint announcement that so far all parties, being LS Power, PG&E, and the Open Space Authority, are roughly in agreement on. We just need the inked agreement between PG&E and LS Power.
That's great.
So the second item is an update on the battery storage proposal in Coyote Valley. That would be a 40-acre installation on the property just south of Bailey near Santa Teresa, or actually between Santa Teresa and Monterey Road. So with advice from expert consultants that we're working with, we are gathering information to inform a letter that we would provide to the California Energy Commission. What we're hearing is that there doesn't seem to be demand for additional battery storage in either the state of California, locally in San Jose, or within the greater Bay Area region, based on what the experts have been learning. Just because there's such an incredible queue of battery storage and frankly green energy generation projects around the state, which is wonderful. You know, it's terrific to see that progress towards state goals. And as we've mentioned in the past, the Open Space Authority has nothing against green energy. We're very supportive of projects like that. We just believe that they should be done in consideration of an appropriate site and not where there's been so much conservation investment as there has been in Coyote Valley. So we will keep you apprised of progress on that front as well. And then one more item I wanted to bring up is that we've been aware of concerns expressed by members of the community, especially the agricultural and the equestrian communities, regarding updates to county rural zoning ordinances. And those proposed amendments to rural zoning ordinances have been to protect agriculture, which we're very much in support of. There have been concerns expressed about potential negative impacts to equestrian facilities, to agritourism, and events that are held on some farms, as well as potentially extremely small acreage farms. So we are continuing to follow that situation. Lena Ian, our conservation policy specialist, made comments during a public meeting that was specific to the equestrian community. And there we expressed support for the equestrian community that, of course, uses some of our trail systems and the facilities that they need to operate those, while we were also expressing support for protecting agriculture. So again, we'll continue to monitor that situation and keep you apprised. Our understanding is that next Tuesday, Supervisor Raditz will bring forward a referral with some recommendations to staff about the amendments and acknowledge some of the input that they've received from the agricultural community. And we're really appreciative of those efforts for her to listen to what agricultural operators have to say. So we want to express support for the ongoing progress on those amendments.
Megan?
Good evening, directors. Megan Drager, Conservation and Strategic Partnerships Manager. Couple of quick updates. One is happy to share that there's been good progress made on the Five Wounds Trail project, the city of San Jose. So we've recently met with the city and county to learn what the city's progress was. So where they're finalizing the general approach and the timeline for the easements that we're gonna hold over the trail corridor. This is a former railroad corridor that's being converted to a trail. And as a reminder, the board approved a $500,000 contribution toward the construction phase of this project, contingent on easements being in place. So we're working through those easements now, but it is looking promising. We don't have an exact timeline for trail construction, but we anticipate this first round of easements will happen next fiscal year, in fiscal year 26-27. So we'll likely be back with an update as soon as we know more on that. The second one, you might remember at our last board meeting, you approved an application to the State Coastal Conservancy for the wildfire resilience grant program. So we do not have an award yet, but the agenda is out and their staff have recommended us for that award. So we're looking forward to that board meeting next week. And as a reminder, we requested $240,000, and this is for fuel management work. And largely that funding is going to go toward a big piece of heavy equipment, an excavator with a masticator attachment. So more to come.
Good evening, directors. Lucas Shellhammer again, Planning Design Construction Manager. A few brief updates on project work we have going on. Really excited to share we've had a tremendous amount of public excitement and outreach regarding our Rancho Cañada Regional Trail Expansion Project, which Anna showed earlier. Jennifer Peth, our Senior Open Space Planner, has led a series of public outreach meetings, and the last one, which was an online version, we completed last night. Again, we've had 350 responses for this round, and I think over 700 on the first round. So incredible feedback, and she took a couple of groups on tours out there at the preserve to get feedback as well, which was a new experience that OSA provided. So next steps are to take that feedback and come up with preferred alternatives for the trail based on the public feedback and the work that staff's done so far. And the Land Use Stewardship Committee at our last meeting, you might recall, directed staff to look into some of the details of costing for different alternatives, scenarios, and some of the details specifically around backcountry camping. So we'll be working on that and then share an update along with the preferred alternatives early in the new year. For Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve public access improvements, I'm happy to share that our draft environmental documents for the National Environmental Policy Act compliance have been transmitted to the County of Santa Clara. And we're working with, we have county staff assigned, and we're working with them and have identified I think the January 27th supervisors meeting for their approval of those documents is what we're planning on. And we'll be planning then to be releasing in late January or early February the construction bid documents for that, which will come to the board, I think in April tentatively. So some big milestones on the horizon for that project. And then finally, as Director Kennett mentioned earlier, the El Toro Mountain MOU, which your board approved about a month or so ago, was approved by the Morgan Hill City Council last week. Major milestone, along with the trail easements that have been negotiated, and will be in the very soon here in the near future working with city staff to identify some milestones for next steps for acquisitions for the staging area and future planning that we can include in next year's budget and work plan. That's all I have.
Great. Good evening, board directors. Aaron Aber, Natural Resources Manager. A few items. My staff tells me that we have tickets available for the Santa Clara County Farm Bureau Christmas party. That's Tuesday, December 2nd at 5:30. Please let us, Caroline, know by November 19th. So fairly short order. There appears to be some sort of white elephant situation. So brace yourself. In other news, I am part of the organizing committee for the inaugural Science and Stewardship Symposium. This is a project of the Santa Cruz Mountain Stewardship Network and kind of a joint venture with the Mid-Peninsula Open Space District. That's scheduled for January 30th. Should be a really exciting event. We've gotten sponsorships lined up. We expect to have a couple hundred attendees of practitioners in the space as well as academics. The theme of the conference is bringing those two groups together. We'll be joined in no part thanks to Andrea by Dr. Jen Norris from the WCB Wildlife Conservation Board as one of our keynote speakers. Our friends at the Amamutsun Land Trust, as well as the Waikima tribe of the San Francisco Bay Area will be part of sort of the plenary session. And then there's all sorts of great, wonderful breakout groups that I'm helping to organize. On another news, shortly after the prior board meeting, when Anna Regalado engaged this group in a kickoff to the agricultural strategic plan, she organized two meetings all in one big long day to get external partners and experts in the agricultural space. You know, sometimes we use that term food system, but most literally it's a bunch of different organizations and peoples and actors who are working around sort of farming and the farm space in our community. A lot of technical expertise, a lot of wisdom came to this room and helped us sort of kick off like, hey, what is our niche in the agricultural space? What do you guys think we should be working on? So a really wonderful meeting. We use that same group of people for the most part to roll into an agricultural design charrette for the Coyote Valley properties in CV Camp, because we have about, say, half a dozen properties where there's some element of agricultural work in there. So a really successful agricultural charrette that some of the outputs of that Nick and I plan to take to the board in January, and you'll see sort of versions of some of those ideas. So a lot of good stuff going on.
Good evening, directors. Nick Berry, Long Range Planning Manager. Speaking of the charrette and all the work going on with CV Camp, next week we'll be receiving from our consultants the first draft of the conceptual alternatives for public use and access in agriculture. And so between next week and when we come back to you in January, we'll be working hard to have those reviewed and vetted both internally and with our partners and stakeholders who are working with us on CV Camp. So excited to lift the veil and get into those alternatives we've been talking about for quite a while now. As you've heard, next week is also the last week that we have our Coyote Valley planning intern to my right. And I just want to take an opportunity to thank Braden for all his fantastic work. Also thank his supervisor, Jennifer Peth, for mentoring him since he came here. He's our first planning intern as far as I know. Yeah, I'm getting nods from the admin side. And Braden, you set a very high bar, and really looking forward to building upon your work and all the great stuff that you've done for us for CV Camp. So thank you. And also, if you didn't know, I'm a history nerd, and Braden went up to the Bancroft Library at UC Berkeley and went into the actual first source materials and archives to bring that history together for us tonight. So really great stuff that we'll have for future interpretation, which I really value. So again, thank you, Braden. Concludes my updates.
If I, through the chair, sorry, I said no earlier, but I do have an update. Elizabeth Loretto, Administrative Operations Manager. In the party vein, reminder, your next board meeting on December 11th will kick off with an end of year celebration. So please plan to arrive a little early and have a little reception time. And in between the party Aaron mentioned and that is also our organizational luncheon, our end of year luncheon on the 4th. So just keep that on your radar. And then last is that next week we should see our 2026 seasonal employment opportunities going live. So we'll look to you all to help share with your networks. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. That's it. Thank you. Okay, no legal report and board member reports.
Geez, a lot of my steam was taken by you guys, but I attended Economic Development Committee this morning, and most of it was dedicated to the rural amendments. Proposed rural amendments. Two things came out of it. I won't go into all of it because you guys iterate. Is apparently Supervisor Reyes is going to recommend that this whole thing be put off until late spring, perhaps even midsummer. And she says she has the votes for it. So I think, and apparently one guy made the comment that apparently whoever wrote this stuff never left the city of San Jose. Or perhaps even the rust, the 12-story rusty building there. But one thing that came up disturbing is somebody has brought forth, I don't know, and I think you know about this, is that somebody's putting behind it, people who are behind these amendments think that the OSA is behind these amendments because it's a land grab, that they shut these places down, we'll be able to take them up. We know that's not the truth, and we're trying to find out who's behind that. You attended a meeting, I think, that addressed that.
Through the chair, we're aware that there's some chatter out in the community, in the ag community, just certain sectors of the ag community, that perhaps some of the elements of the rural zoning amendment are being made to benefit open space organizations. So we have a lot of fingers out there in the equestrian community, in the small farms community, with the Farm Bureau. And so we're going to be out there talking to people and just understanding where the concerns are coming from and reassuring them that this organization has been and always will be very committed to the viability of agriculture, large and small. Talking to Supervisor Arenas about that and others. So yes, we're aware of that. Thanks.
And the people we work with are not behind it. They're for us. They understand what we do, so it's not a problem. The other thing that came out of that meeting is was mentioned about the MOU about the El Toro Trail, and came up again that since it's a quote unquote urban trail, that dogs on leashes should be allowed. And we've heard this one, and a couple of people even, because these are Zoom meetings, showed their doggies to vote that yes, we should be allowed on the trail. Anyway, and so the city's going to celebrate the 120th anniversary this coming year, and we'll be contacted how we can participate, maybe whatever. So the only other thing is regarding the shutdown is in my community in Yosemite. We were up there this week, and the gates were open. And there were a lot of reports of break-ins or attempted break-ins in the various private properties. And so one of our neighbors called 911 and nobody came. Calling 911 and nobody. They all got a call from the sheriff's department, who does not and told them basically wait until the rangers are back. That's all I have.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to give a shout out to Lena for the chart she put together for all of us about the different representatives from different governmental agencies. And so I feel like I have my work cut out for me in January, just to go meet with all of the other electeds and introduce myself as a member of the Open Space Authority. And if they have any questions, to please reach out. So I did want, because it is extensive and it's complicated, that was a lot of work. The other thing I wanted to say is I did the backpack with MAK, and it was Supervisor Margaret Abekoga's walk, and we walked through Quicksilver, the backside of Quicksilver, and the ranger who was presenting the information, the historic information about Quicksilver, was Braden's mom. So shout out to Braden. It's not just him, it's his family. And I know his dad from the work at San Jose Parks. So it's a small community. Thank you for your great work and the Spreckles information, and because your mom gave us the history of New Almaden. And so it's so cool. But thank you. That's it. Great.
Excited to share that I reached out to NBC journalist Damian Trujillo, who also has a show called Comunidad del Valle that airs on Sunday mornings, and connected him with Charlotte on the team. And they're going to move forward with doing a feature on OSA, Coyote Valley, and educational programming, I believe, in the next few weeks. And I believe it's with Monica Nanez, who'll be also doing it in Spanish, which is going to be awesome to see and aired. And then once we get that date, I'll be happy to share it with everybody.
I have no report.
Hey. I think we're at the last line item on my board meeting script. And that's that the board will adjourn the meeting at 8:35 p.m.